A motion and a second. There we go.
Can we name
Do we need
them?
to back up? Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the March 16th meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we need to insert a 2A, and we need to elect officers and replace the vice chair with Shane Taylor, who has resigned. Thank you, current, I'm the chairman. Vice chair is vacant, and the secretary is Jack. Bree.
I'm the secretary?
You took Pat's place,
Look at that.
or
Take
Gina's
excellent
place.
notes, clearly.
I don't know, you took the place, I gave you secretary.
Am I supposed to
I think,
be secretary?
no.
Okay, yes, honored.
Honorary secretary.
It's the easiest job in the city.
That's what I was gonna say.
So I guess we can either start at the top or we and go from there. Y'all are full of.
Does anyone want?
We need to elect officers.
Okay. And we just have one position.
We just have one open. I mean, we got,
Technically, all three
All-
positions.
all three. And we just have.
But you can only read on.
Gotcha. Well, I nominate JP to be chair.
Second?
All right. Myself as chair, any other nominations? We'll cease nominations and vote. All those in favor of JC as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just one. All right, and for vice
Just
chair.
JC.
Huh?
Just
Yeah,
JC.
For vice chair,
I didn't even know there was it.
Now, my blind.
have a nomination of Blaine. Have any others? Cease nominations. All those in favor of Blaine Dawson being vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And secretary?
I do have a question. Do you think it's problematic that I have an officer position on this and being on city council? I mean, like I said, I didn't even know I held it.
Probably not, especially since the role is fairly limited, but it's, if you want to abstain for that reason, I'd say abstain.
Well, okay. I don't necessarily care, but if you thought that was problematic, we should discuss it now.
I nominate Bree for secretary.
Have a motion for Bree as secretary. Cease nominations. All those in favor of Bree for secretary, say aye. Opposed, same sign.
I'm abstaining.
So do we get that put on our flash?
Get some duct tape and we'll do it. All right, thank y'all for bearing with us. Revised PUD for Parkwood Townhouse presented by.
Ask Prairie to come on up, have you got some revised, I think we've made a few changes, it's even this draft. I think as far as the lot layout, street layout, I think everything that is seen here is accurate. I think the changes reflect the width on Park Street, correct?
Right.
Anything else?
No, that was,
So this is.
Well, the only thing that's different is that this is 30 foot and we changed it to.
We had you change it to 35.
That's the width of the park.
Right.
And
If you remember, Sunday and Florida lined it on their side and then lined it on this side.
that's the only thing.
That's the only thing I think that we requested. Did you get the water and sewer lines on there?
I did not, because it'll be a whole, because we changed the layout of the streets. So all those utilities will have to be redesigned and it'll be part of the preliminary plat.
Okay, well, this technically is preliminary plat for the PUD, but I think we can go ahead and approve it, which will set all the lot alignments
And the
streets,
setbacks in
everything
place.
like that.
Yeah.
I will ask that in the motion that there be some kind of verbiage that submittal of utilities will come at a later date, and that's for the Public Works Department to approve, so.
Do you want that now before the preliminary plat is submitted? Is that what I'm hearing? That's correct.
I think we can approve the utilities after.
Okay,
I'm okay with that personally, and I've talked to Chuck. Chuck's looked at the streets, he's looked at the layout, he's looked at, the drainage. I think he's got out to our engineer. Have you given him the new drainage report? It didn't change any, right?
no,
Right. Okay. I know he's had conversations with our engineer about that. Our engineer's in the process of changing.
yeah, see, again, there's some detailed design as far as the underground storm sewer that would be part of the preliminary plat design drawings, and there'll be a whole set of drawings in that submittal. It won't be just one sheet, and that would be something that would just be amending that existing drainage report.
PUDs are a little bit different than subdivisions, but this is the preliminary PUD.
Okay,
I'll leave it up to the planning commission whether or not they want more detail on utilities or not. The Public Works is, they're okay with working with him on the specific design on that. I've already talked to Chuck. I think probably this development's not gonna happen right away. Is that accurate?
yeah, what we're doing, we've got that mountain view, and that's still quite a bit of build out to be done on that, and so it could be 6 months, it could be a year before we really want to move forward with the preliminary plat even. So it'll probably be 5 months after that before you really start construction, and a year and a half after that. So you're talking about 2-3 years before you're actually talking about lots here.
So the main thing you're wanting to do tonight is try to just lock in the PUD layout.
That's exactly right. We want to have the lots approved the way we've got the setbacks laid out, the street alignment, across from Sundowner, and basically being in accordance with the concept plan that we went through, but it being actually voted on as far as a PUD or a preliminary. That way, when we bring the preliminary plat, it's in accordance with this, and so, we're not having made any changes on as far as the subdivision itself go at that point.
I have a clarifying question. I've got a couple questions actually. This property is for sale, is it not? So PUDs don't carry over to, if another person were to buy that property.
They do right now.
Okay,
We went through this with the
But that's
property
what
up the road.
Changing.
They do right now. The new code will change that.
and when is that being implemented?
Well, you probably won't adopt it until summer, so. So right now, PUDs do carry over. And right now, there's no expiration on a PUD. There will be in the new code.
So why do we want to lock ourselves into something?
Mhm.
They could change it.
Well, how can we change?
If it gets,
Well, the PUD, okay, the fact that the PUD is conveys with the property, I mean, it's like a zoning. And, it probably should convey.
It won't with the new code. It will actually, now, there is not a separate requirement for PUD zoning in our current regulations. It's supposed to be zoned a residential designation that is compatible with the PUD. Okay, and that's the language it uses. It's supposed to be compatible with PUD. The new regs will actually create new PUD zoning for these types of development. And the PUD zoning will go away if the development doesn't get built
Or expires.
or expires after 12 months, yes.
and on the expiration, that's if they haven't started breaking ground in 12 months, right?
Yes, and there is a procedure in there where they can request an additional 6 months, just like on large scale, but. So 18 months would be the kind of the limit.
So I mean, I guess I'm questioning
But he's-
why this is not for the preliminary plat. I mean, you're not at that stage.
It's a zoning proposal, basically. And the only thing we're establishing is the lot layout. The fact that this being in accordance with that concept plan. Now, is the concept plan perpetual? Does it convey? Like if I were to sell the property, can I make the assertion that we have a concept plan that was approved with
Subdivision plats are, so I would assume, once you get preliminary plat approval, I think it would convey as long as, now it would convey no matter what. In the new reg, it would convey up to 18 months and then it would expire if nothing's been done.
That's the preliminary plat, though,
That would be any subdivision, including plots.
okay.
But then correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, if we're gonna approve preliminary plat, approve this, we not be approving the bill style at the same time?
And I don't think any of that has changed what you submitted, correct?
No,
And I didn't send all that out to you all again, because I sent it to you in the past.
Right, but I mean, I'm trying to clarify.
Yes, if you approve this preliminary plat, anything that they've submitted to date showing a design and that sort of thing would still apply. And I think that's just 2 of the 4 designs I think they submitted.
right, and that is part of the PUD then, so it's locked in, and
That's part of the
even if
package
it
that they
does,
submitted originally.
even if it does convey these requirements conveys with it, so somebody can't just come in and do what they.
Well, that's what I'm clarifying, I mean, that's what I'm trying to confirm and for sure answer for everybody.
Yeah, I think if you approve it as a preliminary plat tonight, and let's say they do find a buyer, which I don't guess it matters if it doesn't buyer can build the exact same thing, because
Exactly.
who cares who builds it,
But if we do approve, they have to build the exact same thing.
Yes.
everything they submitted as far as PUD, that's what a PUD is, a PUD specifies this, and this is gonna be done.
Right.
And that's the only thing that can be done as part of the PUD, so.
And the only way to make a change would be to submit it.
Come back
Yeah,
here.
they'd have to make an amendment, and resubmit it to the city.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is because I know we discussed that falling off.
Yeah.
So if it is currently for sale, in the new, depending on if we don't pass it tonight or whatever, it would fall off. So, I mean, it was almost a conversation for us to have and for you to be aware
Okay.
that when we do adopt the new ordinances and stuff, that would be,
Yeah, there's
Gone.
a 12-month expiration if nothing has been done, and it has a clause in there that they can request to the planning commission for an additional 6 months, so it's an 18-month period and then it expires.
and the I mean, to clarify on our behalf, we were burned recently on something that was undeveloped for several years. And it had been approved 7 whatever years ago, no longer fit kind of what we saw appropriate for the use of the land. But since it had been approved, there was really nothing we could do about it, because it had changed owners. And it just didn't really work in our favor. So now we felt like it wasn't fair to the city, to the future, for us to hold on to something for 8 years as quickly as this town is changing. And so that's kind of where the background on all of that is.
And I mean, like, I said, I don't understand why we're in a rush to approve it, if you say so yourself, that this is not preliminary plat ready.
It's PUD, again, the question we wanna have answered now is that we could move forward with the lot layout and the setbacks. And having those attached buildings the way the concept match. And since the concept plan submitted, and it's not really a public meeting, I mean, it's a public meeting, but it's not really that much public input. I thought this would be, the next step is just to get a PUD where there's more public input. And then it's, we can move on this in a year or whatever.
What did we approve 2 meetings ago when this was put before with the other 3?
It was,
You right now, you've approved the concept plan for that.
it was the
Which is
second thing they
basically
brought to
you're
us.
asking for.
It is, except
So
for the
that's
road,
why, that's why I'm, what's the meaning again?
so we're just bringing it back with that.
And before that, you get approved a preliminary plat for the development before they make the
Yes.
amendments.
But that's been expired,
Right,
because that expired
that's gone.
in January, yeah.
Since the new regs haven't been put into place yet, there is no expiration date, he can start building in 5 years, and it's just, I mean, we can wait 5 years and then be building And to bring up Bruce's point, we might, could possibly have the same situation that we had last time. When something sat there for 8 years and.
Yeah, I
and
mean-
it changed and we no longer thought it fit.
The one thing that won't change in this case is the specifics can't change, but yeah, the conditions out there could change, and who knows? They're not gonna change much, because you know you're always gonna have some down there.
Yeah,
Across the street,
I
that's
think
not
it will
changing.
remain residential.
Agreed.
In our land use plan, it conforms with the
Yes.
uses in our land use plan. So I don't think there's a lot of risk either way, but, it is a little unusual not having a little bit more detail in a preliminary plan.
As far as the utilities and. things.
Yeah. And the things that typically would be on there, there would at least be, we'd be able to look at fire hydrant replacement, street lights and those sorts of things.
Better for him to get all that lined out.
I mean, if you're not, I mean, you're not gonna start breaking ground tomorrow, so.
Well, that's a detailed design, so, you know, they're gonna have to spend money on more. You know, what this is just the zoning condition. It's approving the zoning condition, the setbacks, the lot sizes, the lot density, street layout. All the underground utilities and locations of curb inlets, all of that gets worked out in your preliminary plat.
Which is what we're approving tonight.
Well, we're moving a PUD. And that's a planned unit development, which is a zoning condition. It is not a development.
The steps that are listed in our reg, and I've been over this with Prairie, the steps in our reg is concept plat, preliminary plat, final plat, and that goes for a PUD as well. So
So the PUD is supposed to go with the preliminary plat.
it's the same exact steps as a regular.
So really, this is almost just like an updated concept map.
It is.
Yes.
So
And if
really
you want
not,
to reconfirm the concept plat based on that tonight, I think we'd be fine with that too, but,
I mean, that's what it feels like, is that we're just
Yeah, we don't wanna do the-
reaffirming the concept.
We do not want to do the full design at this point.
Yeah.
You know, there's gonna be some things that need to be worked out on that lift station that we don't even know that may change 2 years from now, like, you know, there's too much unknowns for me to do a design now for something that's gonna, you know, that you're gonna actually build in 2 years. So, all we want to have approved really is the lot sizes, like I say, the zoning requirements as far as, you know, setbacks and that type of thing.
And the difference between the previous concept and this concept is just a street realignment, correct?
basically in the widening on Park Street, which we requested. So those two things.
But if we approve it, we would be approving a preliminary plat.
No,
No, I think we can just determine and approve it as a sketch
If I'm
plan.
listening to all, I don't think, I think you're confident.
no.
So, because there has been changes between the concept plat last month, and he has done public notifications on this meeting. He sent out notices to all the adjacent property owners. So I would say it might be appropriate just to reconfirm an amended concept plat tonight. Because it has changed.
Very well.
Sketch plat.
Is there anyone here in the audience here for this? Yes, sir.
My name is Edward DeLong. I live at 1341 Brigade Boulevard. And I question, first of all, what does the word adjacent in this notice of the meeting stand for? That means the property has to be directly next to it.
Patchy.
Okay, between my house and Park Street, there is a strip of land 10 to 15 feet wide that is owned by someone else. It's behind all our houses. Was that owner notified of this meeting?
Jackie, do you know what he's talking about? I don't handle the
You,
notifications.
you back up to Park Street?
Hmm?
Do you, your house backs up to Park
Yeah.
Street?
And
Well, that
behind it?
strip of land behind the fence belongs to you.
No, it does not. It belongs to a Bush Trust. If you look carefully on the tax collector property owners list website, it shows the specific land behind all of our houses. And then it crosses over the street and they own some property near where
There.
the United Methodist Church is.
Okay, that's news to me. I assume that it was
I
your
mean, unless it
property.
was needed out. But it's not on the plan.
Did you receive a notice, sir?
Hmm?
Did you receive a notice?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm just
So
questioning,
who is this person that owns this street?
somebody who lives in town owns a lot of land. That he owns some other land on the other side of your property over in here.
See, I mean, if it is there, that lot probably doesn't comply with the subdivision. There's something out law. Yeah, I don't know how that would happen.
I don't know either, but that red circle.
What I did was I went on the Facebook GIS and I put a circle around it and it spits out the property owners in a list.
Mhm.
So it could have been in that list, there were 19 owners.
It looks like it's potentially, it's, the person that sold the Methodist, or gave the Methodist church their property. And also the person that originally owned this piece of property,
You know what?
that's who's
Okay.
living in.
Okay.
It looks like it's a strip that is within the right of way of the road.
Yeah.
But it's in the Billy Joe Bartholomew Trust.
I know I did same things.
You did send something to the trust? Okay, so he did send notice to the trust.
Okay.
Yes.
The street plans that you're showing in there are different than what was at the public hearing in the library 6, 8 weeks ago, where it was more of an S curve through that property. You all remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so why is this so radically different? Yeah.
Master street plans are not regulation, first of all. They're a guide. What the planning commission has said in previous meetings is, what's important to them is that they're not just cut off, that there's a way to get in from Park Street over to Butler Street, and this serves that purpose.
Okay.
It doesn't have to follow that exact curve or that exact route. As developers come in and develop, they fit it in as they can through their development, as long as it meets the goal of having a through street from Park Street to Butler, that's the goal.
Okay, and the wonderful tree that's on the lot, are you planning on just destroying it, or are you going to timber it out and let it be used for, or is it gonna survive?
You're talking about this street that's across the.
It's the only tree
Yeah,
that's there.
the previous preliminary plat that we did a year ago had it saved, and we will do that again, yeah. As long as we
I
let it.
smile because this has come up before.
Okay,
Yeah.
The birds,
that
the birds
tree's up.
love that tree and I keep feeding them.
We'll save that tree. I'll make personally see
It's
to
the only tree there.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
How close do you have to be to this plan to, get a notice?
Has
I
to
live 1131.
Your property would have to be touching.
be touching
Okay,
everything.
there's one lot in between.
Anyone else? So. Recommendation. Mine would be to, amend the,
Construction's not for another couple of years. It was
So we
big,
will-
it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
or amend the previous approval.
My dog is feeding.
Amend the previously submitted sketch plans.
yeah,
I guess my question is,
Well, that's fine, we were just curious.
I would say.
like, if it's not the preliminary plat, if they're just moving things around,
What's that?
this is gonna sound a lot worse than it should, I'm just gonna preface that.
It's okay.
So it's really more, I'm just confused, but
Okay.
at this stage, does it really matter
I
on
think,
our behalf?
well, I think because some major changes have occurred between the one they submitted last, I think it is important that you at least
Okay.
vote on the amended version.
Okay, okay, that's great.
And so the only thing we're voting on there is the widening the tree, that's the only thing that's changing.
And the real-
Line.
and the real-
And the line.
Widen Park Street.
Well, if you were to add a contingency or a requirement that this, if we move forward with an EUD, that it would be only valid for 2 years at this point, even though that regulation isn't in the ordinance, but it's being required now by.
I don't know, we
I
can.
don't think.
Oh,
I don't think we can create that kind of language.
We can't make it up on the fly.
And just for, and this doesn't matter tonight, because you're not, there was some street names, I think, Jackie, that we're gonna have to modify.
Yeah,
Well, Sundowner.
Pinnacle View. Pinnacle View is too,
It can,
Yeah,
we have a Pinnacle already.
well, from a fire department standpoint, I would just assume it
Remain the same.
remains Sundowner Road across there and then change.
We've got a Pinnacle Street already in town anyway, so that's gonna have to change.
Yeah.
And Palm Meadow, I'll leave it up to y'all, we have a Palm Street, that's pretty close, but, you know. it is
Well, Palm
different.
Street's
Well, are we,
one house.
So that one, we have-
are we voting? We're voting on
No,
that.
no, it's not the lower.
So,
Yeah.
so we're doing an amended concept plan then instead.
That is good, yeah.
Can we make a motion to amend the concept?
Yes. Is that what you're making?
That's what I
You
said.
I would like to
Okay, got it.
make a motion. I didn't know how to nicely say it.
The question, I don't know.
Yeah. Can I, or you let me?
All right, so I have a motion and a second to amend the previously amend this drawing to the previously submitted concept plan for Parkwood Estates. Any further discussion?
I'm gonna say one more thing. I was a no to begin with, so I'm remaining a no because nothing has changed in my opinion. It's not anything different that you brought, but that would be hypocritical of me to turn around and say yes. So just FYI.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, you good? Thank you. Track splits for Randy West off of Viney Grove Road.
Is anybody here representing this one? Just briefly, this is something, West have done for a number of years. And it's one of those gray area splits. It technically meets some of the exemptions for exempted lot split because it's, 4 tracks over 5 acres, that would be exempt. But because they've added the 60-foot right of way in, there's some language in there that if there's new right of ways or access, ingress, egress, that, it changes the process. Just to be safe, I think it's better if we run this through the planning commission. The West, what they do is they split off these tracts of land and they turn around in agreement with the state park. So this will all be going into development state park. So it won't be developed.
It's not gonna be developed.
It's just to be transferred to the state park. They split it up into smaller tracts, I'm sure, to enhance the appraisals. And that's the whole purpose of this.
And once it's in the state parks,
State park.
It's like, nothing different, touch it. No, we're done with it, all right?
All right,
Make a motion to approve the track splits for Randy West off of Bonnie Grove Road.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Do no one in the audience to discuss this? All right. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Enter into the Board of Adjustments for hear an appeal from specific requirements for improvements on East Douglas Street by David. You think it?
I think.
And he's used to it.
Yeah.
Does that drawing fairly represent what you're looking at as part of the driveway?
That is a fair assessment of what we're talking about.
Okay, David, of course, lives on this middle parcel here with the house in the back, so you remember you're on Stinchco's house, that helps in. David also owns this, how many acre parcel?
1.7.
1.7 acre parcel here, which he's thinking about splitting, which he can do, he can service 2 private lots off of a private drive. So he's thinking about doing a private drive from the street to the middle, so we could access this other lot, and doing a lot split and leaving selling. He's asking for the exemption on driveways over 100 feet. I think that's gonna be about 300 feet. Is that sound right?
It's at least 250, so.
Yeah. So it's well in excess of the 100 feet that we allow for variance over that. The only thing that I would probably the request is that they at least do some kind of concrete apron at the street, and then they can gravel the rest of the way, but other than that, that just keeps gravel from getting in the street.
So say, how long do you request that the apron is?
Just typically to the backside of the ditch line, so usually, 10 feet.
One concern I have is, I mean, I think this exemption was intended for single residences. And when we get into this dividing, I know from a fire department standpoint, it's a real problem, and I'll point out, off Viney Grove Road, those ones that go back in behind there, we had a call in there, and I mean, they give you a gravel driveway just barely wide enough to drive a car, let alone drive a 70,000-pound fire truck in. So, I mean, that's the only concern I have is just.
Yeah, and the way our regs are now, we allow 2 splits off of a private drive, I mean, we can't, there's nothing we can do about that.
Private ground is owner gravel too, and to the east over here, yes.
Yes, and it has been gravel long before we had any.
Grandfather in, yes.
Is your driveway gravel?
No, it's asphalt.
Is it? Okay.
Primary.
So that's basically what he's asking for is the variance, to be able to gravel that driveway back to that property.
Is there a width requirement for that driveway? To be,
Technically, no, I mean, he'll have to provide, when he surveys that, he's gonna have to provide a minimum of 30-foot easement to that property, but within that 30-foot easement, he can put a 10-foot lane if he wants to. We don't have any requirements for the width.
If we look into though, making that a requirement, would that help
Yes.
you, JC? I mean, that kind of,
And what width would you normally prefer on something like that? I'm not saying that we can't do anything now, but in the
Right.
future.
Well, I mean, probably 15 at least,
Yeah, I
20,
was gonna
20.
say 18,
Yeah.
just to get 2 cars beside each other. I know, I mean,
If you drive out in Viney and look at that one, I mean, they started at one width with gravel, and now that gravel has fell off, the mud's come up around it, and it's in a particularly wet area anyhow, so. This is, I probably wouldn't be as concerned with this and that side of this. I don't want to see us doing it a whole bunch.
I think that's something we can definitely look into adding or discussing with Parker.
yeah, we can definitely do that.
And a lot of it's just the apron part, right? To get in and
Yeah.
off the
Yeah, the
road.
only reason we want the apron concrete or asphalt is just because that gravel tends to wash out into the
But
road.
I'm saying the width even of the
width,
drive
Yeah,
would be the entrance and exit, not necessarily the drive, because once they've made the turn.
well, what I think the fire department, like, if
You
the fire
have to take it
department,
multiple lap.
they want to be able to get a vehicle back the other direction, they want two car width.
Like if a fire truck's coming in and
Right.
an ambulance
Ambulance
is getting
leaves,
out, they can do that.
Without getting stuck in the mud.
He's got wide open grass there, I mean, that's not gonna be an issue on this specific one, but it.
Yeah, we're not necessarily throwing anything on you, Reggie, but it's a good conversation for us to have.
Pleasure.
Yeah. I make a motion, we approve the appeal for specific requirements or improvements on East Dubbo Street by David Hytink, with the addition that they have a paved apron. 10 feet, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
To the back of the ditch.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign sign. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. And then you said you had.
Yeah, briefly, we've got you may remember, probably about 3 years ago, we approved a rezoning on Butler for a residential subdivision. We actually approved R175, so that property is zoned R175. Another buyer has come along and is buying that and developing it. And the engineer reached out to me today and wanted to know if they could skip concept plan. And I told him, no, the regulations, it's one of the steps in the process. And I explained to him that, really the concept plan benefits the engineer and developer more than it does the city, because basically if there's gonna be any issues with the planning commission, that's what the purpose of the concept plan is, before you spend a lot of money on engineering and design and layout. He said, we don't care, we're willing to take the risk. So I looked through the regs today, and there isn't anything specified in our regs that say that there's that time frame between the concept plat and preliminary. I told him I would be okay if they wanted to submit concept preliminary the same night, we can call it that. It's, the risk is on them, if you all say that it's not a layout that you're gonna approve, well, they're gonna have to go back and do redesign, because he's already got it designed.
Right.
I've seen it, he said, well, I submit you for concept, it's gonna be the exact same thing, I'm gonna turn around and submit you for preliminary. So, if y'all are good with that, they will be back next month, and that's what I'm planning on proposing, is that they submit both concept and preliminary same time. I don't remember the name of the subdivision, but it's quite a few lots.
216 lots.
Yeah, you got it on your phone.
You disclose the builder's name?
I'm not sure I know the engineer's cracked told. But I don't know who built it.
on Butler.
Right next to where the storage building and facilities going in, the next piece of property. And then we had a subdivision concept plan on it a few years ago.
The one that's got the.
But, they backed out because they said there were some wet areas.
Which is just west of where the new storage field is.
Exactly.
Giles property, but
Yeah.
Part of the job, probably, the southern.
I mean, this is exactly what we were just talking about, like 3 years ago. Things have changed a lot, 800 new houses, like, okay, maybe.
Rezoning's permanent, you know, tell somebody to rezone,
Right.
obviously, but,
That's why the new amendment or the new plan has got a timeframe on stuff now.
Well, but a rezone isn't.
a rezone, now the city at any time, like, you know, wasn't on our radar, obviously, and we thought about it, the city can initiate a rezone. So let's say that got rezoned R175, and a year from now, we thought maybe that was inappropriate.
Mhm.
We can, you can, the city council can initiate a rezone, there's a process for that. We don't have to wait for the property owner to do it. So keep that in mind in the future.
Well, if this doesn't come to fruition, could we potentially look at that for this?
Absolutely could.
piece of it?
and 175 is 50 foot long.
No, we changed those to 65.
Okay, so his concept, but doesn't do it.
He even asked about that, didn't he?
Yes, he was trying to, get the,
He even asked that
Small lot
question. He
size.
said the old regs required 50 when this was first developed. He said, do you think we could get by with that? And I said, no, that was what I told him.
that's what I told him.
That's what I thought.
That's
Saw
second.
that.
I haven't seen the concept plan yet. I know she came across my email today, but
How would you do that?
yeah, I haven't opened it up. though.
Because what was approved, right, was concept.
Actually, that's a division. I think we did approve a concept plat for it, and then the developer said it was too expensive to develop, he pulled out.
So as long as it was just a concept, it's not preliminary, so we have that where it would have to fit.
But the subdivision part fell off of a year anyhow.
I'm gonna get home to Blake, Monday and just tell him, you know, that doesn't conform, you won't get approved, and, so. He'll probably have to do some redesign between now and next month. But he needs to get that submitted to us, what, next week?
Well, I think he understands that it can't be submitted with the
I told him he
smaller,
couldn't do 50 lots, I already
Yeah.
told him no.
has he, is that what
That's
he,
what JC said, it's showing.
Well, this is now, he submitted this to me for the fire department back.
Okay, he's probably changed it then.
yeah, we've had conversation with.
Yeah, this one
with
was
him.
in the March 1st.
Okay, I'm guessing, let me pull it up, quick, but I'm guessing he's changed it
Is it
too.
the same Blake that worked with the engineer guy at my house?
Yes, he now works for Craft and Toll.
Really?
Larry, did you want to mention the, townhouses?
You can mention it, but again, I'm not positive we need to do anything else. I'm gonna have a conversation with Parker. The, triplex that you all approved on Butler last month. We found out after the fact that, they're planning on doing townhouses there and doing divided lot lines and selling those off individually, which isn't technically what we approved.
On West Butler.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily have a big problem with it, other than they should have been upfront and told us that to begin with.
Probably like it better.
Yeah, I mean, they'll get taken care of better, obviously, if there's ownership involved, but, wait a minute.
But you had, the lots would have to be split.
Well, there'll
And
be, yeah, and
and they showed it on
zero
one lot.
lot
Yes, they're gonna
lines.
have to come back and do lot line, and we're not sure, well, we're not sure right now, if they do 3 lots, technically, that makes it a subdivision.
Mhm.
So now I've got to talk to Parker and get some.
That's why we have so many questions.
Firewall going all the way through the ceiling.
Mhm.
One on each side of the,
Which it would have done that anyhow, wouldn't
Huh?
it? It would have done that anyhow on a townhouse,
on
on a
a
triplex.
triplex, yes, but if there's more.
There's a few more restrictions on the townhouse.
townhouses.
So I don't have my numbers here in front of me. Approximately how many houses do we have that we buildings, doors? I mean, with what we did, I mean, approximately.
Mayor,
We
probably.
have on paper right now.
Yeah, that we've approved it for subdivision,
I remember.
and the big one that we just approved,
I think it's somewhere,
that was 600.
what you think it is?
No, I said that one was 600 by itself.
And we had, the one that dealt with tonight, but I always think it's somewhere between 12 and 15.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, 1,500, count Hudson Heights in the next phase. A lot.
And then another 200.
Well, it won't be 200 at larger lot.
I can't pull it up. I think it's close to 15, 12, to be honest, because I'm running it through my head. I mean, I drive the subdivisions about once a week to make sure I'm kind of working. It's a lot, there's a lot going on. And we approve it more every month. So it's not like, and it makes for landing out like Parkwoods. If they don't do for 2 years, Frost Common still has a lot on the agenda on if they'll ever get started, when they'll ever get started. I mean, so there's some that's way in the future if it even happens. But even if we stop today and they just build exactly what we have on paper, we can easily be over 10, 11, 12,000 in population just from those houses. And it's a good problem to have, to be honest, but it's still, there's a lot of population. Yeah, he didn't send me a copy of this, so I don't have it. But we had the conversation, and I told him that those was not.
Yeah, that was amended 2 months ago.
I still have a question, I'm still confused about this. Does it seem appropriate to approve anything that's up for sale? I mean, I understand if things fall through, they wanna have something in place, but that just seems really weird to me.
Hudson Heights, it's almost right in the middle. I mean, that one had actually started construction with one company
Ended with another,
and it sold and another company picked up.
but that was in the middle.
Well, I mean, it was just as construction was getting ready to start when it sold.
Right.
The new company came in and built it out, but
I guess I just don't understand why they're paying Birdie to do all of this.
I have a theory, but I can't say it out loud.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I do too.
I think there's things going on behind the scenes that, because I'll be honest with you, I've argued with Ferdy for the last 30 days over this and kept telling him, you have to submit preliminary plat, you have, and he shows up and he still.
Right.
Doesn't help with selling, if you already have something approved and later on.
You would think it would help.
That's what I think, that's what I think. It's easier to
I
sell.
think there's even more
Yeah,
nefarious.
Yeah.
but that's what we're moving away from,
I think it
essentially,
has
so
more
it's
to do
just
with some of the utilities involved. If you want.
100.
Well, the lift station.
I didn't say that.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I say we get out of here.
Second,
Motion
third.
second, all in favor, say aye. No, adjourn.
I'm gonna turn off this recording. We're not talking anymore, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, what do you change on it now?
Down
Thank you.
to a pet.
Yeah, you like the correct spelling of my last name.